JavaScript. So many bugs, my code was flipped. But then I found a better way. Blazor came and saved my day. No more tangled client-side. C#'s got me feeling right. Real-time updates, lightning speed, WebAssembly, that's all I need. I'm blazing with Blazor, feeling alive. Full stack magic, server-side. .NET's got me flying high. Hot reload, I touch the sky. I'm blazing with Blazor, watch me go. Interactive pages, real-time flow. No JavaScript, no delay. C#'s the future, here to stay. Scope styles and razor pages. One code base through the ages. From the back end to the view. C#'s got my workflow smooth. No need for APIs. Signal law just syncs my life. State is shared, no reload. This is how the future's code. I'm blazing with Blazor, feeling alive. Full stack magic, server side. .NET's got me flying high. Hot reload, I touch the sky. I'm blazing with Blazor, watch me go. Interactive pages, real-time flow. No JavaScript, no delay. C#'s the future, here to stay.
Started out lost in the code. Too many stacks, didn't know where to go. Then I found the one sleek and tight. .NET got me coding alright. From the back end to the cloud, C# makes me feel so proud. Cross-platform, let's ignite. One framework to rule my life. Built on .NET, running smooth. Enterprise apps are indie groove. Microservices, APIs, from Blazor pages to AI. It's fast, it's strong, got no regrets. Cloud to desktop, no limits left. One ecosystem, let's go next. I built the future on .NET. EF Core, my queries fly. SQL magic, watch it ride. REST or GraphQL, take your pick. Web APIs that scale up quick. From the back end to the cloud, C# makes me feel so proud. Cross-platform, let's ignite. One framework to rule my life. Built on .NET, running smooth. Enterprise apps are indie groove. Microservices, APIs, from Blazor pages to AI. It's fast, it's strong, got no regrets. Cloud to desktop, no limits left. One ecosystem, let's go next. I built the future on .NET. Built on .NET, running smooth. Enterprise apps are indie groove. Microservices, APIs, from Blazor pages to AI. Built from measure functions to MAUI apps. Machine learning, bots that chat. Hot reload keeps my code intact. One command, I'm shipping fast. No more pain. .NET's the way I run my game. Scalable, reliable, gotta confess. The future's written. .NET is best.
Yeah, now the sound is on, the mic is also on. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for telling me. So, small round today. Maybe a bit more people are tuning in later. Let's see. Yeah, today, as you can see, it's about vibe coding. ChatGPT is open, and I want to do this together with you because I did prepare nothing at all. So if you have any ideas about building something, then please tell me. Would be also interesting to know where you're tuning in from. What time is it at your place? Are you currently at work or are you at home? What's up with you all? Chat, please help me. And David is asking, what is this track? Yeah, again, vibe coding today, right? So AI stuff. And yeah, funny little track, I think, that I generated or let it generate with AI. That's the stuff. So, if you have no idea, then I would just start a Visual Studio and then let's just see what we can build. We can create a new project, of course. And then, then yeah, it's hilarious. I think so too. Let's just start with the Blazor web app. And if you have no idea, then let's do something that I wanted to do for quite some time now. And that would be, it sounds boring, a to-do app, but the name of this to-do app would be Questlog or Questlog Pro, because what I want to do, I had this idea for quite some time. Actually, maybe you know this, in particular, if you have children, then you have this mental load. You get so many tasks every day, all day. And one time when I played Skyrim lately, yeah, Skyrim was released 2011. But anyways, I got this idea because in quests, right, you get a series of tasks, and I like this idea of, let's say, it's not a project that would be boring. It's just a quest for you, something with one specific topic, and there are several tasks in there. So yeah, it's actually a pretty nice exercise, I think, to build something with Blazor and .NET, and maybe we can use AI for that today. So let's just try that. Let's call this Questlog Vibe app maybe. And we hit next. .NET 9 it is. Server render mode for now. I think this is totally sufficient. We will need interactivity, of course. We want to create some tasks or new quests and sub quests, whatever. Then we need interactivity. So I would choose the server render mode. WebAssembly, I think, is not really necessary. There won't be a lot of load on the server. So let's just stick with server, I think. And this could already be it, but we can also, of course, use individual accounts as well, because then we are able to register users and stuff. So maybe let's just add that as well. Again, as I said, I haven't prepared anything, so let's just see how this goes. And I don't know how much time I got. Kids are asleep, but the little one may be or may wake up at some point. Let's just see. So yeah. The questions? Yes, I am fine, thank you. I need access to one of your repositories. I already added a post in the community. Sorry about that. We'll do that later. And Zimbabwe, it's 19, yeah, 8 o'clock, right? Same time here in Germany. Great. Okay. Now, since we're using .NET Identity here, as you can already see, some stuff has been generated for us. We already have a migration here. So we have to run this. Also have components with account and stuff. So this is great. Since .NET 8, actually, you can change all these pages Identity gives you, right? So before, you could also use Identity, but there you did not have the Razor components, actually. It was MVC, so you would have to scaffold that stuff and then change it, but it's not the same technology, let's say, as Blazor. And if you're a Blazor developer, then of course you're used to that. So anyways, here are the components. We got some data. We have a DB context, and we have the application user inheriting identity user. So this is from identity, but we have, I think we have no, there's the connection string. Yep, in the app settings. But what I want to do is I actually want to use SQL Server Express and not a local DB. So the server would be then in that case localhost. David, you're from the US. Nice. 11 a.m., I guess. Have to go to work meeting. Okay, but you can still just be tuned in, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I'll come back later. Hope the meeting is not too long. You know, meetings, I'm not a big fan of meetings, in particular if they are very long, because they cost lots of time and in the end also money. So yeah, that's that. I got a new setup, by the way. I have this new boom arm here. So I hope it doesn't make too much noise when I am moving the microphone around. Marco from South Africa, hi, good evening. Thank you for the legend. Yeah, meetings are terrible. That's absolutely correct. You know, I like to chat with you guys. Please ask me questions or tell me about your life, about your coding life, developer life. There are these, I don't know, rules, secret rules you can use in project management, in particular if you're using Scrum, for instance, that with daily stand-ups, I had this in one company when I was employed in a game company here in Germany. There was this rule that for the daily stand-up, we had Scrum, right? Maybe you know, you're familiar with Scrum. Then every day you have these daily stand-ups. So the whole developer team comes together, and we were really standing, hands out of the pockets, and then everybody had to say what he was doing yesterday, the last day, and what he's going to do today, and if there are any problems. And this has to be done in 1 minute only. And if you take too long, then, you know, the Scrum Master or whoever was the moderator, let's say, had to stop this developer and say, okay, these are too many details. Let's talk about that later, or simply cut the speech, let's say, because it is too long, and then next one. All right. And I love this because in every other company, sometimes it takes ages, and there's always this one coworker who thinks his stuff is the most important, and then he talks and talks and talks and keeps talking. Yeah, and you're just sitting there and try to listen. But I did not always succeed. Anyway, so localhost it is. Love your content. Thank you very much. Through that, yeah. Thanks. So localhost it is. SQL Express database. Let's give this thing a different name. So the database is maybe the questlog vibe DB. Actually, is it okay with you that we try using some AI? Because the vibe coding still is so trendy currently, and I don't know. I don't want to give junior developers, in particular, the impression that vibe coding is perfect for them because they still have to learn. So it would be really interesting to try out prompting GPT, for instance, and then see what GPT is coming up with for the application, and then yeah, fix it maybe, or everything works. Could also be the case, probably. So trust server certificate also true, I think. I hope this is correct. And regarding the migration, not the snapshot, this is the first migration. In the app method, we see you're of course going to create a table, ASP.NET roles, ASP.NET users, role claims, lots and lots of stuff that we don't need. But anyways, maybe later we need this. So let's just see. I'm also not sure if the correct packages are already there. SQL Server tools and framework call. This looks great. So if you're not familiar with that, you need Entity Framework Core. If you want to use Entity Framework Core for your migrations, code first migrations, so you write your code first, and then Entity Framework is magically creating the tables, relationships, stuff like that. We want to use SQL Server, so this is the package we need for the SQL Server provider. So Entity Framework knows how to talk to SQL Server, and the tools are the stuff that we are going to use now to update the database or create the database first. There's something in the chat. I have worked in monolithic applications so far, but now other companies want microservices. Can you tell me how to learn and what to learn? I haven't really used microservices, actually. I'm building lots of line of business applications, so internal stuff. Also some public applications. Current project is a .NET and Blazor project that is for customers, but so far no microservice necessary. And in the community, it's at least my impression that people are getting away or going away from microservices. Maybe this was some trendy thing a couple years ago, but currently, maybe it's often the case that you don't really need microservices. You know, the thing is, similar with clean architecture, for instance, that applications, uh, not all applications tend to scale that much that you need that stuff, right? So, yeah, it is possible, of course, that microservices make sense. Clean architecture makes sense. Clean architecture can also make sense for small applications. Maybe they will grow, right? But when you start and you start small, then it might be the case that this is not really necessary. So maybe it makes sense to build it kind of open and adapt later then. Docker, the question is, what do you think and feel, and how do you feel about Docker? Docker, we're using Docker at work, and together with Kubernetes. So in essence, it's a Docker farm if you want. Yeah, it's great. You can totally use it. Problem for me is, as far as I know, it's not that easy to test on Windows systems. For instance, Docker for Windows. I don't know. I got 64 gigabytes of RAM in my machine, and still hard for the machine to run Docker for Windows. So it takes lots and lots of RAM, and yeah, not the best experience in my opinion. But if you are more familiar with that, and if you are, let's say, an admin for that stuff, I'm not that much into it. I'm more of the developer coder side. Then um, I'm happy when it works, but other people are writing the YAML files, for instance. But the idea of Docker or containers in general is, I think, really great because it means that you get rid of this sentence, it works on my machine, right? If you have any error, any bug is reported, and then you say as a developer, but it works on my machine. This is not, or in theory, this is not possible anymore with containers, because with containers, you have the same system every single time you build and deploy your application, because, well, in essence, with the Docker container, you create a whole new system, Linux typically, so, and only install the stuff that you actually need, and then deploy your application there with all the, I don't know, environment variables, for instance, if you need them. So the let's say the environment in the end should be always the same. And this is the best thing of containers, in my opinion. Your dailies take 30 minutes with 6 persons. Yeah, horrible. I agree. It's too long. It's too long. Too long. Okay, so we have all the packages, I think. Let's just try to update the database. Update database it is. And then let's just see if everything works. Hola, señore. By the way, what do you think of this mug? Can you see this? Do we have some gamers here? Hello there, Maurizio. Great name. Okay. I got this, by the way, I got this for my birthday. Thank you. My birthday was on Friday. Yeah. No, that's not. Is it true? Was it on? No, on Thursday. Jesus. Sleep deprivation with the two little ones. Thursday was my birthday, and I got this mug for my birthday. Isn't that nice? All right, so database should be there. So let's just start SQL Server Management Studio, and then let's just see if the database is really created. Takes a while. There we are. Let's just connect. And then we should see databases. Okay, there are some here. Here it is. All right, the other ones, some of the .NET Web Academy, Time Tracker and Blazing Blog, CRM from another live session, publication also another live session, Video Game DB, maybe from my tutorials. But this is our database. Thank you very much for the birthday wishes. So let's see, tables. Yeah. All right. This looks nice. And let's see if this app is also running. There it is. Great. So this is our beautiful new application already with user management or user registration rather, logging in and stuff. Okay, and what I actually wanted to check is, yeah, that was important here. This is the registration of the database, context, and so on. So, guys, now what should we do? Should we ask GPT for code? Should we do it ourselves? Should we use vertical slice architecture? I would like to use vertical slice architecture and then try to use GPT for that. Hope the delay is not too long. But we can prompt GPT with something so we can see if vibe coding works. Okay, so far no answer. Are you guys sleeping? Are you at work? I'm not sure about that. It is late, I know. Also for me, 8 o'clock. All right, then let's just ask GPT for, I don't know, maybe the quest model, and then also something of a sub quest, maybe. So let's say I want to build a web app with .NET and Blazor server. The app is called Questlog. In essence, it should track tasks, but the overall model is a quest with tasks as sub-items of these quests. Could you please provide the entities for that? Any tips using ChatGPT for beginner developers? Too much reliance on it. I know ChatGPT gives quite much hallucinations often. Yes, it does, but let me answer this in a sec. I've seen vertical slice trending lately. We can go with it. I have been delaying on learning it. I have worked with microservices and the clean architecture. Alles Gute nachträglich. Vielen Dank. Yeah, let me just send this prompt. And then now regarding the ChatGPT question for beginner developers, I said it before, but the most important stuff really for the junior or beginner developers is that you do not, as we will do in this little stream here, you do not simply copy paste and accept that this is now the truth, right? You always have to check if this is actually correct. But of course, the problem is, how do you know if you are a beginner and you do not have lots of experience, right? So in that case, it is more important to maybe use GPT less or use it in a way that you ask GPT to explain everything that it is trying to give you, right? So for instance, we have this model here, the quest entity, and now we see, okay, public class quest. Of course, the question is, what is your level, right? What kind of beginner are you? Do you know what the class is, for instance, or don't you know that? Then we're talking about something totally different. In that case, you would start learning maybe object-oriented programming, C# first, the syntax and stuff like that. But you can also use GPT for that, maybe, and then ask GPT to explain what's a class, for instance. But in that case here now, what's not that typical if you are not used to .NET maybe is this thing here, this GUID type. And if you are a beginner and you don't know what this is, then maybe you should ask GPT what that is. But at the same time, also do some research yourself maybe, right? So you have to find the balance there. Then if you are more experienced, then you could, of course, use GPT or Copilot, whatever it is, more often, because then when you see the code, you have this idea and feeling if this stuff is correct, if this could work or not. But let's just see how far we come today. So this is our quest class with an ID. Using a new ID by default. We have a title, we have a description, created at. All right, we have a due date and a status. And then you have a quest task. And it is also giving me this thing. This was a question I got in my mind now. The status for this quest. Do we get an enum here? And yes, we do have one enum here. Not started, in progress, completed, or abandoned. So this is nice. And then it also asks if we want more stuff like tags or categories, repeating quests, daily, weekly, deadlines or reminders, and gamification features like this. Definitely, I want to have experience levels or badges. Not sure about that, but yeah, I think we can go with that. But first, we have the quest. This is all right. We have a navigation property. Now, this is something, right? If you are a beginner and you don't know what a navigation property is. Now, this might be something you don't know as a beginner because maybe you have a little experience with databases, you touch databases so far, but maybe normalization is new to you, or foreign keys, primary keys. What is all that, right? And in particular, if you want to use that with Entity Framework. And in that case, a navigation property is something you haven't heard before. Maybe you know what a foreign key is, but you don't know what navigation properties is. Now, in that case here, this just means that this is a property showing you a relationship between these entities here. So you have a quest and then a quest task. And here now you see we have a list of these tasks of type quest task. And this means we have a one-to-many relationship, right? So again, in that case, you can just accept it and just move on, copy and paste that stuff. Maybe it works, but it could definitely be the case that you do not really know what's happening there. Hi, everybody. Hello there, Medium Code Zone. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. All right. And then the next thing, and this, again, navigation property, is the quest task. So our sub-quest task, let's say. And again, we have a GUID here, title. We have notes. Why not? All right. We have a flag is completed. We got experience points already. Optional in case you want to gamify it. Created it. I created at. And the quest ID. And then the navigation property quest. Again, important here now is we have the navigation property. So this is then the other object regarding the relationship. But for that, you need a foreign key. And in this case, this would be the quest ID. And you have to know this, right? Or you should know that if you just want to copy and paste that stuff. And if you want to know what's actually going on there. And then we already talked about the enum. This is nice. Now, there's one thing I am missing here. Actually, two things. We have the created at date time. This is nice. But what I also like is to have something like an updated at date time value, then maybe even delete it if it is deleted. In this case, we could also say when was it completed. So this would be something that I would like to add. And then what we also should add, is the actual user, right? So that we have a relationship between the quest and the user. Granted, I did not tell GPT to give me that, so we should actually tell GPT to do it. Hi Patrick, I hope you are well. It's Asman from Zimbabwe. I appreciate your work. Thank you very much. This is a great question. Why set property default value? I would say we just do exactly that because this fits the earlier question about beginners, right? So let's see. Default and an exclamation mark. Could you please explain this line? Why set the quest to default? Great question. Deadline can look a bit weird at first, so let's break it down. What it means. This is a navigation property. It points from a quest task back to its parent, the quest. All right, so we have a parent-child relationship here. Now about the default and exclamation mark. Default just means the default value for the type, which is null for reference types like the quest. And the exclamation mark is the null forgiving operator, which tells the compiler, trust me, this won't be null at runtime, even though it might look like it. So this is basically saying this property will eventually be set, probably by Entity Framework, when it loads related data. So please don't give me a warning about it being possibly null. Additionally, it tells us C# 8 and above has nullable reference types turned on by default, so a long time ago. Without that default exclamation mark, the compiler would complain you're not assigning a value to quest and it's not marked as nullable. We have three options to make the compiler happy. Use default, common when Entity Framework sets this behind the scenes, mark it nullable. So the question mark here, with that we can say, okay, this thing is nullable, or assign it right away, but that doesn't make sense here because EF will populate it. Too long didn't read. It's a way to avoid nullability warnings when you know a property will be set later by Entity Framework. If you're using C# with nullable reference types disabled, you can skip the default. Want me to show the whole model adjusted with nullable stuff if you prefer that style? I hope this question was answered now. All my channels have decided to stream at the same time. I'm sorry about that. What are the other channels? Would be interesting to know. Yeah, sorry, I guess. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you very much. All right, so again, I hope this answers your question. And actually, this is a great answer, I think. In my experience, I would probably use the question mark, so make it nullable. But indeed, it makes sense to do it that way, maybe because it is a relationship, right? And the quest task should not be able to exist without the quest, right? Without the parent. So this child object is actually, it needs a parent. This GPT is not for me, says Medium Code Zone. Why not? Tell me, would be interesting to know. Because so far, I think this is great, what it gave us. But as I said, I want something else. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know why I always say thank you and please to GPT, but anyways. Hello there, Tanjim. Nice to see you. So, let's say we need something else in our classes. Please add date times for updated, deleted, and completed. And also, I am using .NET identity. So could you please add the user? By the way, what's the type of the user? Let's see, there it is. Application user, right? Yeah. The application user to the quest. I don't know why I thank the AI. It's just my style. Maybe they are getting I don't know, in some years they are so um, mighty, thinking of Skynet and so on. And maybe if I'm just nice to the AI, then they will be nice to me. Let's just see. And you see, it says you're very welcome. Isn't that nice? So let's enhance the model based on what you need. Add these date time fields to track changes. Updated it, deleted it, and completed it. Add an application user navigation. Yep, this is what I want. So now we have created it, updated it, deleted it, and completed it. Okay. We have the foreign key for the application user. And here, pretty much the same thing. But I can already see that the deleted at, well, there is this deleted flag missing here, right? So if we want to, or if we have this property here, then we also need the deleted flag. So this is missing. We would have to add this. Of course, we can always do this manually, but that's not the point, right? So maybe we can tell GPT that. And if you're using ASP.NET Identity, your application user class might look like this. So we have to add the quests there. I think the deleted flags are missing because I actually only want to use soft deletes. But you see, this is already a hint from me that I'm talking about .NET Identity. I'm talking about soft deletes, stuff like that. So this means, I know this is basic stuff, don't get me wrong, right? But if you are a total beginner and you don't know what a soft delete is, for instance, soft delete in essence just means that when you delete something, then it's not really deleted from the database. You would just change a flag and set it to true in this case. And then when you want to get all the tasks in this case, for instance, then you just filter all these that are deleted. So we got soft deletes. I think there was a big debate in the past in regarding Facebook, because it wouldn't delete I don't know, posts, anything actually. Wouldn't delete anything, just use soft deletes there. But the data was still in the database. Interesting times. So yeah, you have to know that, right? And only if you know how to prompt properly, or in other words, ask the right question, then you get better answers from AI in the end. So gotcha. Yeah, we need something like is deleted. That's correct. So now we have the ID, the title, description, created it, updated it, completed it, is deleted, deleted it, as status, and so on. And then here, same stuff. This here is correct, that we only have the user here and not here in the quest task. And optional global query filters. If you're using EF Core, you can even set up a global filter to automatically exclude deleted items. Yeah, but I'm not sure if I want to do that, because maybe I am an admin. I have an admin dashboard or something like that, and I also want to see my deleted ones. Or even as a user, I could also use a trash bin, stuff like that, and still see them. But it's a great idea. Actually, this is an opportunity to learn something, right? So this is interesting. Okay. So I think we can use these models. Let's just see if it already works then. So we can copy the quest here, and then also the quest task. There's something in the chat. Default expression does not clearly convey the intent of the code, and it can be difficult to understand later why a field was initialized this way. This can reduce code readability especially. It's a good point. But what would you use then? Also the question mark, so simply make it nullable, for instance. I'm soft deleted when you sleep. Yeah, me too. Is deleted is not necessary to add if you have nullable deleted add. Yeah, that's true. But then again, you know, let's think about the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid, maybe. I think this is, it totally works, of course, and you're saving one column if you just use deleted at and not use a flag. But then if there is another developer and looking at the code or the model and you see the deleted add but no deleted flag, of course you could get it, but maybe it takes 1 or 2 seconds more to think about that. And this is energy. I know it sounds stupid maybe, but this already takes energy that maybe you need somewhere else or later. I hope you get the idea. Hello, Ari. Hope I said this right. Thanks for tuning in. And Scott, you say you add complexity by adding another property. See, it's crazy. It's such a simple application and such simple entities actually, and we already have so many different opinions. It's awesome. I love that. And this is also why it's so important to talk to your team or your project manager if he's a tech guy or girl, because you say now this is adding complexity because of the or you say another property adds complexity. I say if you save the property and just assume that a certain value of another property means something different, that you could also show with this other property that in your opinion adds complexity. I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but you see that we have totally different ways to implement applications. And this is so interesting. In particular, if you combine this with AI, because GPT, for instance, has its own way, or it is suggesting one way one day, and another day it might suggest something totally different. This has been the case in my experience. So this also means if you're working on one project and you want to use the help of GPT, Copilot, Cursor, whatever it is, it could be the case that your style changes while building this project. And this is dangerous, in my opinion. And this is also why it's so important to double or triple check what AI is giving you and if it matches your work, your current project, your team, your code guidelines, whatever it is. So just pay attention there. Just your opinion. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Medium Coder, my .NET 8 Core Web UI project consumes a lot of CPU when it first loads. Do you have any idea? Is it WebAssembly? Is it server? What is it? Running on Linux? Oh Jesus, Linux. Sorry, I'm bad. I have experience with Linux, but I ditched it a long time ago. Not really using Linux. We are using Linux with Docker containers, but that's admin stuff. That's not my world. Sorry about that. Kita, I've been unemployed for 6 months. I feel confused and sad when I had to do others' jobs to survive, but I still want to get back in IT, I guess. Become a software developer. How can I do? I'm 23. You got time. Jesus. But I need some help to understand this. Did you, I don't know, did you graduate? Did you study this? Did you, I don't know, finish a boot camp? Anything? It would be interesting. Best Syrian says, hi Patrick, is there a reason why I would use GUID instead of string? I recently had some issues with nullable deserialization, the GUID approach with the GUID approach, so I switched it to string. Is that wrong? No, it's absolutely no wrong in my opinion. GUID is a .NET thing. And yeah, many developers are using GUIDs. The thing with GUIDs is that, and now I have to be careful what I say, but they are or should be unique. The probability that you have exactly the same GUIDs is really, really low. There is a probability, but it is really low. And that's an advantage. Probably when you're using strings, or I wouldn't use strings actually, I would use integers in that case. Then I just assume that you are using numbers and just increment the numbers. So in that case, I would use integers. I just assume that. I'm not sure if you really do. Thank you, Medium Code Zone. It is very enjoyable to listen to you. Thank you very much. So yeah, long story short, no, it's not wrong to use something else. you can use GUIDs. They should be unique, but you can also use integers. I often use integers. Totally fine with that. They are incremented by the database management system automatically, anyways. And if you delete an entry, really delete it, not just soft delete it, then you can assume that it would not use the ID of the deleted one. If if you have an entry, you delete it, you add another entry, and the entry you deleted had the ID 10, then 10 would not be used again. It would jump to 11. You can totally see that in SQL Server, for instance, if you delete some stuff and try again and so on. So the numbers should also be unique. There is a trap, a pitfall, though, with using integers as IDs. Now I see that you are actually using GUIDs. In that case, just use the GUID type. Okay, if you have problems with that, then yeah, use strings. I think you have maybe trouble at other places, maybe because you always have to cast this to strings, I guess. But if it works for you, then it's fine. But still, with this, just let me just finish this idea I had in my mind. When you're using integers for your IDs, which is in essence totally fine. But then if you are, for instance, using pagination in a data grid, or using or you want to get a subset of your data from the database, and you use the IDs then for the pagination, for the subset, and then you want to use the next page, and you are using IDs, the integer IDs, then it could happen if you have lots of users, and then an entry is deleted. Maybe at the same time you are switching the page, it could be the case that you're missing some entries. But that's everything, I think. If you have other ideas about that, please tell me that. Nothing. I think with application user standard is an integer as primary key. ChatGPT has defined it in the model with string. Could work. Hi Patrick, appreciate your work. Thank you. Do you prefer GPT 4.0 over GitHub Copilot? Isn't there a way to use GPT 4.0 inside Visual Studio like GitHub Copilot? Interesting things. Yeah. Welcome. No worries. Patrick, we are coding with my daughter, Layla. Can you say hello to her? She is 8 years old. Hi there, Layla. It's awesome that you are starting to code, that you're learning to code. It's an important skill. I think this is a skill for life, really. It's amazing. I hope, and I don't know if Medium Code Zone likes what I'm saying now, I hope you're also playing video games. Because honestly, video games led me to, or made me interested in writing code, and made me build applications, games at first, of course, and now web applications and games. But yeah, games are lots of fun, and you can totally learn to code with building games, simple games, right? Yeah, don't have to use Unity for that. Just use simple stuff. Okay, anyways, next question. Can I create a large-scale web app using ChatGPT? That's why you're here. I'm good with C#, but not much UI web. Blazor looks promising, but how to structure the solution? 17 business modules, serious regulations, audits, and so on. I get lost when it comes to architecture and solution structure. It's B2B app. Hopefully, SaaS, software as a service. Is it SaaS? Software as a service. 17 business modules. I'm not sure what you mean by that. And oh, there's already a question. You can use GPT-03, which is extremely good at UI, and the same goes for Google's new Gemini 2.5 Pro preview, which is free. See, Scott is more experienced with AI than me. What do I have here? I have O3 here. Uses advanced reasoning. Okay. And here, great for most tasks. So I am using this model here, actually. And honestly never switched it. I'm just using the most not preview one. As you see here, 4.5 would be good for writing and exploring ideas. So brainstorming might make sense here for this model. But when I ask GPT something coding related, then I am using this model here. And regarding, I'm not coming up with all the questions, but regarding Copilot versus GPT, I don't have a lot of experience with Copilot. What I'm using Copilot for, maybe we will see this when I go back to Visual Studios, I don't know, sometime this evening. Then what I can tell you is that it learns relatively quickly what I like, and it, so far for me it's just a better IntelliCode, right? We started with IntelliSense, then we got IntelliCode, which was a little bit more than IntelliSense, and now we get Copilot, the free edition. I have to say that I only have the free edition of Copilot. So, and what it does, I think, is great. Sometimes I'm playing around with writing a comment, and then Copilot is doing something. What I also like about Copilot is that it knows your complete project because it's inside Visual Studio, right? So you can ask questions regarding your project, and Copilot will give you answers that make sense. I guess. I hope. Um, but so far, still, I'm rather using GPT when I'm using AI. So still playing around with both. Yeah. But that said, I think Copilot is also great at explaining stuff. I'm really not that used to Copilot so far. I used GPT when it was released pretty much then, since then. Um, so I like how GPT learned to explain stuff to me. Hope this makes sense. So yeah, so I'm still more the GPT guy again if I am using AI. But regarding Copilot, and when you're using Visual Studio and you have the free edition of Copilot, then you automatically kind of use Copilot, right? I don't know. These are just my 2 cents. Okay, other questions. I'm always up to date with all AI. I love reading about it. That's awesome, Scott. I'm not, honestly. It's so hard to keep up. I think so much stuff going on. You also last time you told me something about Claude, for instance. Never tried Claude. I never tried Cursor. Jesus, what I did though, I did a tutorial about that. The new AI template from Microsoft, right, regarding the chat bot. This was awesome. This would actually is also a good thing for a live stream, maybe. Let's see. Um, mm, 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 mm. Is there a way to combine clean architecture with vertical slice? Absolutely, there is a way. And let me just show you a way. For instance, this is the Blazing block application from the .NET Web Academy. So here, what we're going to do, or what you would do if you would join, is building a block. And at first, maybe you say, well, a block is not that complex. It can get complex. So that's why we're using clean architecture to also learn it, of course, because a block, in essence, is at the beginning a simple app. So we're creating all the layers here. And maybe you already saw it. What I'm doing here then is using feature folders, right? It's not a lot, but to get used to this approach using features, we did it here. And this kinda is vertical slice architecture, right? Because in vertical slice architecture, what you also want to do is using features and then have your use cases or your features in either folders, as you can see here. Now this is just UI, so we we put the article editor, articles eraser, and the article view in the components folder, but of the articles folder, right? The articles features folder, and then also a controller inside this articles folder, right? And then you can also see we got the article model and the endpoints here because I first used the controller and then I'm showing you in the course how to use a minimal API, how to transform this into a minimal API. So this already goes in this direction, right, of vertical slice architecture. But to uh, let's say use it more in a sense of a really high cohesion, meaning have everything that belongs together very close together, then what you can still do is, as I did in my tutorials, for instance, using just one file for all the C# stuff, let's say. So for your handler in that case, because here now in the application, you see, for instance, get article by ID, we have a query here and also a query handler. Fun fact, we were using mediator there, but then I changed it and added an own implementation um, that works the same way in essence. So yeah, you see you have a query there and a query handler. And if you would like to use vertical slice architecture, you would have something similar. You could add a features folder, then use the articles folder, and then similar to this style here, you have the use case create an article, delete an article, get an article by ID, and so on. And then to use it more in a way that Jimmy Bocat tells us to do or to use it, then you would have one static class called, I don't know, get article by ID, for instance. And then you would add your query there and also your query handler, and you're done, right? And then you can also do the same thing in the presentation layer. So the same structure, but then just add your endpoints there. And if you're using Blazor, then maybe also your components. This is debatable though, right? So for instance, here we have the article view to display an article. And the question is, do you need this at some other place of your application or not? Like when I, the application I'm currently building at work, there I also had the question to, you would display an entity, let's say an article entity. It's pretty similar actually. So you have a page that gives you more than just this single entity, right? So when you would say in this blog, you would have a page where you have a sidebar with all the articles from the last 90 days, let's say. But then the main content on the other side is just this one article, right? Then the thing is that you need something to get the data for the sidebar and then also the data for just this one article. So for the sidebar, you just need the titles, for instance, and the ID, so you can navigate to the article if the user clicks this article. But then for the main content, you actually need also, I don't know, the featured image, the date when this was created, of course, the text, comments, whatever it is, right? So these are two different use cases in essence. And above all that, you have a page, let's say, the article page, maybe the article view like this thing here. And then if you want to use vertical slice architecture, the question I had in my mind then is, well, I understand that for the sidebar, for instance, I have a specific query, I have a specific query handler, maybe an endpoint if I need it, and I'm not using Blazor server, right? In that case, I wouldn't need it, but with WebAssembly, for instance, or I don't know, Angular, React, whatever it is, then I would need an endpoint or a controller. So I could put all that logic for the sidebar in one static class. But for the main content, I also have one single class. Great. I could even put the Razor components, again, if you're using Blazor, for both features in the same folders in that case, right? Not really in the same class. Well, could probably also do that somehow, but, or the same file in essence, at least. But let's just say you have a folder for the sidebar, you have a folder for the view, you have UI there, you have backend logic there, but what about the actual page, right? This is the question I had then. Would you put that into one of these feature folders? Doesn't really make sense, in my opinion. So what I did in the end was, you can still use shared codes, or in our other application here, the default one, right? We have a pages folder. Now here it's in accounts, but there's also a pages folder. So the overall page, I just put it there. I hope you see that. Yeah, you see that. I just put it there, and this totally works, right? You only have to pay attention with the database context then, because in that case, you need a factory because you have two queries at the same time, two database connections, so this wouldn't work. So yeah, you just have to pay attention there. I hope this answers your question. Actually, I forgot the question, but I hope this was interesting. Okay, other questions. How can you bounce back into C# if you kinda got stuck in a legacy project at work that uses mostly SQL, but you don't want to lose your .NET knowledge? You mean for database stuff? So queries and updates. So are you using DEPA then, or what are you talking about? I think you have to elaborate a little bit because I don't really understand. Not well. I have assumptions. I have ideas, but I'm not sure if I got the question 100% correct. All right. Anyways, 4 was great for fast responses. All right. Thank you very much. I think so far it's okay. Copilot has 2,000 free completions each month. See, I did not know that. Thank you. I hope to get a simple template which I can then build upon. I paid for such a template, but it was rather too difficult to follow and full of bugs, failures. One critical module is D&D Form Builder. Did I miss something? Ah, you mean for your B2B app? Yeah, that's the thing, right? Question is, how was this template built? Maybe with AI, and there wasn't a lot of attention paid there. Okay, thanks for the answer. The reason I asked is because I'm building a modular CMS, content management system, so I want to decouple as much as possible and keep it maintainable. You know, I think in one video, Jimmy Bogart also said regarding vertical slice architecture and clean architecture, or in general cohesion and coupling, right? The thing with these two architectures, clean architecture and vertical slice architecture, what you want to achieve is with clean architecture, of course, decoupling, right? Coupling should be really, really loose. So this is what you want. So definitely, first idea would be clean architecture. But then again, the question is, how often would you, for instance, change the database? And if you do, what would you really have to do in your code? If you still use Entity Framework and you just go from, I don't know, SQL Server to MySQL or MariaDB, I don't know, then maybe the changes aren't that big. So this is one question. The other one is if you're using, of course, authentication, you're using .NET Identity, and then you want to change that. I'm not sure if this would really happen, and if it happens, is it it's still a lot of work in my opinion. So granted, I haven't built really big applications with vertical slice architecture, but since I tried it, and this was just a couple months this year actually, I really, really like this approach because it's so, let's say, so human-like. So everything you, I don't know, you think about makes sense with vertical slice architecture, and I indeed find stuff faster. With clean architecture, you have to jump around a lot, but with vertical slice, everything is at one place. So decoupling is actually coupling is actually still loose, but cohesion is very high. So I like vertical slice architecture. These are just my 2 cents. How can we implement a system that has payments but in crypto? I have no idea. Maybe give a high level explanation. We can ask GPT. I I don't know. I don't know. Very good question though. I don't know. Payments. I would use. I'm even not sure if I would use Stripe or PayPal anymore. I would use stuff like Lemon Squeezy, maybe. This, for instance, this Questlog app could be also a software as a service app, right? And it's just some idea I had in my mind. But for any application, I didn't really build applications where we also had to implement payment, at least not at work. for fun sometimes. Yeah, that's true. But I don't know if there has to be a payment provider that accepts crypto, I guess, and hopefully they have an SDK or an API, stuff like that, and then you could do it. I think. Thank you very much, Colonel Mesa. See, Scott has your answer. Got a headless CMS by using clean architecture, domain-driven design. I want to learn what vertical slice architecture is. Never heard of it. Do you have a video about it? Yes, I have. Couple videos about that. Yeah, few recent ones. Let me just pull up YouTube. There it is. Okay, so here's my channel. Maybe you know this. And let's just see. The latest videos actually random modes, AI, better than clean architecture. I know it's a bit a little bit clickbaity. I'm really sorry about that, but I want a few views at least. And here I'm telling you that it's about vertical slice architecture. So yeah, vertical slice architecture. This is a bit longer with 22 minutes where I'm explaining the differences between clean architecture and vertical slice architecture with also some slides. So there I tell you this pretty much the same thing with coupling and cohesion. And then here we move on. So here now it's building a CRUD app with vertical slice and .NET 9. Just the API part. And then here we are transforming, because here we are using old school controllers, traditional controllers. And here then transforming this into minimal API. All right. So this is about mediator. Yeah, and this week no video because yeah, children sick, wife sick, so we had to drive to some doctors. Lots of stuff going on. But we're getting better. Yeah, okay, so these are the vertical slice videos. And there's one missing regarding fluent validation. So this will come. And if you join, then you can see these videos earlier. So you get early access to my videos. So yeah. Okay, where were we? We wanted to add some entities, right? And I talked for, I don't know, 40 minutes instead of adding the entities. Awesome. Okay, there we are. So again, let's try that. Are these the final ones? I hope so. So let's copy this. Go back to Visual Studio. There's our application. And now here I would just add another folder called entities. But let me look for the vertical slice project maybe that I already did on YouTube, and then maybe I can already show you how this is built, because I mean this is the 4th live stream and maybe I'm talking too much, but it really takes time to implement something. But I like it. It's a lot of fun for me. I hope for you as well. Yeah. So quest it was, right? Okay. So we have the ID, title, notes is completed, experience. Yeah, why not? Created ad, updated ad, completed ad. Okay. And oh, this was the quest task. Why didn't you tell me? .NET policies. Can I make a video on .NET policies and how to implement them the right way? Yeah, I think I can do that. But authentication is another big topic, right? Maybe you saw it on my community tab, or now it's called posts, where I was asking if you want to see more stuff regarding authentication. And this would be really interesting. What library or framework would you like to use? Because I pretty much all the time show you on my channel .NET Identity, but there's so much stuff that you could use, like Auth0 or Keycloak or Firebase, Entra ID, so Azure, stuff like that. Yeah, tell me, please, what's most interesting to you? Is it still .NET Identity? because it's free in the end, right? Identity server is not free anymore, and it's more complex. Or manual custom authentication, like JSON Web Tokens built custom, could also work. Custom JSON Web Token without identity, really interesting. Didn't expect that, actually, because when I talk to developers in person, most of them say never build your custom authentication solution because it's not battle tested and maybe there's bugs there, you can get hacked, whatever. But at least there, then you know what's actually happening there, right? And JSON Web Tokens, yeah, they do work still. Okay, so we have the quest task, but the quest is missing. So, you God, I got so much stuff open. Let's see. This is our application. This is the chat. Don't need that, actually. Yeah, I think that's it. With JSON Web Tokens, by the way, I learned JSON Web Tokens from. Awesome, thank you. Thank you for telling me that you learned it from my videos. That's awesome. Okay, so this is the quest task, but I need now the quest, right? There it is. So let's go back to Visual Studio. There it is. Entities, add another class, which is the quest now. All right, and we have the status, of course. So, do we have it here? Nope. Yeah, this is something we have to add. Okay. There's the application user. And by the way, this also wasn't always the case, right? So that you see the application user. I think since .NET 8 we got that, but correct me if I'm wrong. And I still love it. You had to know that if you want to use identity and you need other properties than the default ones, maybe we can see them. Yeah, there we are. Right, username here, for instance. ID, normalized username, email, normalized email, and so on. If you wanted to add something, you have to there was no place that told you that you would have to create your own class and inherit from the identity user. But with that implementation now, from the template, it makes sense. You see it. Yeah. Something's going on in the chat. What's really meant is never create your own hashing mechanism. Use bcrypt or identity. You think really? I was thinking about that too, because of course I would also use bcrypt. I think I did not use bcrypt in my latest tutorial. I created I made one tutorial, but this was a long time ago. There I also used bcrypt. Still like it, but you say there or identity. Yeah, I should read the whole sentence. Yeah, and in the latest one, the big one, the big tutorial that is over an hour long with refresh tokens, there I also used identity. And I also think this is a nice approach because you know what's going on there. You can use JSON Web Tokens, you can use your own claims there, or you know what's actually going on there. So yeah, I think this is still a nice solution to build your custom authentication solution. But you're totally right regarding hashing. Use something that is battle tested. And you also say use existing frameworks to keep track of authentication, such as .NET on authentication abstractions. Okay. I think standard identity is actually great in .NET. The only problem is that the documentation is just mega bad, or that only identity server or Entra ID appears in the documentation. There was already documentation where you could override things in the standard identity user, but it's very hidden. Yeah, I know that it was there, but it wasn't that obvious, right? This is what I try to say, that you here then see the actual user, and when you look at the not the DB context, the where was it? Well, actually, it's here. You see the application user in the DB context, but it's, you know, it's hard to tell if you have a tiny bit more experience. If you're just one step further than someone else, maybe, or your past self, then it's sometimes hard to remember, okay, what was actually the issue. But I think, again, still that, um, as you say, the documentation was hidden, so it was hard to see or know or get to learn from the project itself that you had to use the identity user or inherit from the identity user. Same thing with registration. When you say add authentication, or where is it? Jesus, where was this place? There's the place here, identity core, right? When you read the documentation, for instance, or the earlier documentation from the past, then they also told you to use add identity. Not sure about the core one actually, but add identity, and then I think there's also a method where you don't have to specify the object. So by default, you just use add identity core, for instance, or add identity, and it works. And here you see that, okay, it does make a difference. You can give this thing a class, so you know that it's the identity user class, right, provided by the .NET framework, or is it the application user? Uh, yeah, it's really hot up here, by the way, in the attic. So I have this, what's it called? This thing that gives me some air, blows some air to me. More stuff in the chat. Yes, typical Microsoft. Yeah, back then, definitely. I guess. Documentation of identity is horrible. Okay, still the case, it seems. Hi, Patrick. Nice to see you and watching your videos. Thank you very much. Nice to see you too. I, I, I don't see a name. Is it just an icon? I'm not sure about that. Or is it just blank? Anyways, add identity core, add default identity. Scott, this is great. You should do a live stream together. You know more than me. Hi, Patrick. Have a good coding. Thank you very much. You too. You too. So where were we again? We have the quest status. This thing is missing. Where was it? Yeah, I think that's the one. Quest log. Let's just add it here. Enum. Wait, I just copied it, right? Okay. Not started, in progress, completed, and abandoned. All right. I think that's it. So we got our entities. Next step, code first migration, right? We should add these to the database, but we should maybe add them here as well. But we wanted to use GPT, right? This is now Copilot. Also interesting to see what this thing is giving us. So it suggests to add DB sets with the quest task, and it says on model creating. In the onModel, or it uses the onModel creating method to define the relationship. This should not be necessary, actually. And we wanted to use GPT, right? Because now, well, problem is this is not in the database, and if we would be total beginners now, we would have no idea that we would have to add the DB sets. So I'm not really sure what to ask GPT now, but well, let's just see. What's it asking? Add audit logging, automatically set deleted ads. Yeah, this would be nice. Restore soft deleted quests. But I wanna use them now in the database. I want to use these entities now in the database. Is there something I have to do for that? What's going on, chat? Enums are numbered like 1, 2, 3. No, I think they start with 0. But you can change that. You can start with 1 if you want to. You can totally do that. Entry entities to the yeah. See? Yep, if you're ready to use these entities in your database, here's a quick and simple checklist to make it happen using Entity Framework Core. This is awesome. Add your entities with DB context. So we need this stuff here. And this is the full example with also the constructor here. So let's go back to Visual Studio. We add this. And then it's telling us, but we already have the primary constructor here. So DB context options, application DB context options. Oh wait, is this true? Yeah, looks like it. Okay. So yeah, I think this should work. Should we copy everything now to really simulate vibe coding? Not sure about that. And a migration. If you're using EF core migrations, yeah, that's true, but we don't use the CLI actually, or the CLI tools. We use the tools NuGet package. So already you see that if you would have no idea at all, right, if this whole thing works, we would run into lots and lots of problems. We would try to run this, right? And then we would get an error message, probably, if it's not installed, right? The tools, in essence. So then we would jump back and forth between GPT, and GPT would probably try to fix this by telling us to install this or use something else. And this is what I meant earlier, that you already have to know some stuff, right? So you know how to use the suggestions of GPT. But let's just say, for this example, let's just use some of the code suggestions and then just see if they actually work. Seed data, no, it's not necessary actually. Let me know if you want to write a simple service, Blazor Server UI. Yeah, this is something we could definitely do later. Or, and you're using SQL Server. Okay. So let's go back, and here now we see, yeah, I think we can try to add a migration. So it is a bit different with the tools and migration, quests and quest tasks. All right, chat, what's going on? As much as I love C#, I also hate it sometimes. Sometimes you get the feeling that there is something like a circle of initiates that you have to reach first. You mean the boilerplate code, right? That's true. With if you want to use entity framework with code first migration and stuff, yeah, that's a lot. There's lots of boilerplate code you have to write first. But then again, maybe there are templates that do that for you. But I don't know. Didn't bother me so much when I created new apps. Thing is, I have to think about that. I think that I often just have other projects open, sometimes really copy paste stuff, or just check how I did it before. For instance, here, this thing you write, the connection strings. This is stuff I can't really remember or keep in my mind, so I have to look this up. So yeah, sometimes if you have a collection of projects, side projects that you never finish, if you have them, you can look stuff up, and then you're much faster with all the boilerplate stuff. Next question. Would you be so kind to explain what we have in application user? Because last I wrote .NET, I only had application DB context. Yeah, of course. The application user is this thing here. And what I did was we created a Blazor server app here using the Blazor web app template, choosing Blazor server, and then Visual Studio is also asking you if you want to use, let me just do that real quick. So we create a new project, Blazor web app, it is, Blazor app 5, why not? And here now, right, I chose individual accounts. And this means that we will use .NET identity and we get all the authentication stuff generated for us. But to be able to use that, you also have to know how code first migration with Entity Framework works, for instance, right? So what we have then here is not only the application DB context for Entity Framework, we also have the application user that inherits the from the identity user, and this comes from .NET. This is .NET identity. You see it here already. Microsoft ASP.NET Core identity user. So this is from the identity framework, and this gives us some properties already. We can maybe see that a bit better in the database. Here, ASP.NET users. This is the identity user class. So we have an ID, we have a username, normalized username, email, lots and lots of other stuff. All right. So this is in essence the application user. And it is using the application user here because its probability is really high that you maybe want to add some custom columns or relationships, whatever. So in that case, you would add these properties then to the application user that inherits from the identity user. So yeah, you can build up on the identity framework. Hope this answers your question. This line, this is the relationship to the quests, right? We have the, so every user can have quests. And here you see, so this is also a one-to-many relationship. So one user can have many quests. And this is why we have the foreign key here in the quest, which we can actually double check now, because here now we will create a table called quests, title, and so on. And here we have the application user ID, which is then the foreign key. And this will be defined here now. Table foreign key is from the table ASP.NET users, the ID column, and our property is the application user ID. All right. And pretty much the same thing for the quest tasks. So I hope everything is correct. Do you think differently? You could use set, that's true. Yeah, but is it really necessary though? There was a time, I think with .NET 7, where we got a warning for that, but this is gone now, actually. So as you can see here, no warning anymore. So yeah, we could just define it or set a set by default, Scott. But not sure if this really is necessary anymore. All right, update database. Let's try that. Okay, looks good. So now, let's see. We have, just refresh table. There are our quests with these columns. And we see the ID, the title, and the application user ID as a foreign key. So this looks good to me. And same thing with the quest task, but the quest ID here is the foreign key. All right. Luciano, can Chat GPT move identity class when created a new project with identity from a presentation layer to infrastructure layer? It will be cool. Article 2. Well, actually, let's have a look here. If I understand properly, here we have a solution for that. If GPT can do that, well, I think you should just ask it. But it's important how to write that prompt, right? I assume now you're using a clean architecture and you want GPT to, or tell GPT that you're using .NET Identity with it, or you want to use identity framework with a clean architecture, and that you, well, need this in the infrastructure layer, right? Because what we did here manually without GPT is adding certain packages here. As you can see, identity from a core, identity UI. It's actually strange that it's called identity UI. You still need this package for the models. And then here we have our user. And as you can see now, this inherits then from identity user, right? So I would just try it, right? So maybe GPT, I think GPT, well, I'm not sure, but I think GPT can lead you into the right direction. All right. So now what we have here is the quests, the models. Now the big question is, what should we do next? Should we now already build the UI? Should we? Yeah, I think UI would make most sense, I guess. But I wanted to show you vertical slice architecture in another project, right? But there's another question. Is there a reason why you should not use data annotations in an entity, but to set them in the unmodel creating with the Fluent API? I had seen this in connection with clean architecture. Use what the answer then from Tutu, great name. Use whatever you like or works for you. Has nothing to do with clean architecture. Yeah, I think so too. I think the issue that some developers have is that they want to define more complex relationships. So yeah, as Tutu says, data annotations are not as powerful, but you can totally use them. And if you need more, I don't know, more complex relationships, let's say, then I think you have to use Fluent API then. Yeah, Tutu says it. As in, you can't do everything you can do in model creating with attributes. So yeah, sometimes you have to then use the model creating. Interesting. Personally, I put everything in configuration classes. Okay. All right. Let me show you though this one vertical slice project. Is it? Not sure which one it is. I think this one. Yeah. So this is just a .NET Web API, but as you can see, we also have a data folder with a DB context, not using identity here, entities folder with the game character in this case, and then we already have this features folder. And now regarding the structure, it depends what you want to do. You can, as you can see here, use one folder for an entity, let's say, and then for the actual use cases, use one file. And then here, for instance, add a static class where you then put your command. We're using CQRS here in this case. So put your command in there, and then the handler, right? And then you can still use mediator. Honestly, I don't think that mediator will cost anything for for hobby projects. And this is my wife calling, so I have to get that. I'll be right back. See you in a minute.
I used to fight with JavaScript, so many bugs my code was flipped. But then I found a better way. Blazor came and saved my day. No more tangled client-side, C#'s got me feeling right. Real-time updates, lightning speed, WebAssembly, that's all I need. I'm blazing with Blazor, feeling alive. Full stack magic, server-side. .NET's got me flying high. Hot reload, I touch the sky. I'm blazing with Blazor, watch me go. Interactive pages, real-time flow. No JavaScript, no delay. C#'s the future, here to stay. Scope styles and razor pages, one code base through the ages. From the back into the view, C#'s got my workflow smooth. No more tangled client side, C#'s got me feeling right. Real-time updates, lightning speed, WebAssembly, that's all I need. I'm blazing with Blazor, feeling alive. Full stack magic, server-side. .NET's got me flying high. Hot reload, I touch the sky. I'm blazing with Blazor, watch me go. Interactive pages, real-time flow. No JavaScript, no delay. C#'s the future, here to stay. From WebAssembly to the cloud, Blazor's got me feeling proud. I deploy with just one click. Azure's making dreams real quick. So if you're tired of JavaScript's fight, join the Blazor way of life. Full stack magic, feel the glow. .NET power, let's go. I'm blazing with Blazor, feeling alive. Full stack magic, server side. .NET's got me flying high. Hot reload, I touch the sky. I'm blazing with Blazor, watch me go. Interactive pages, real-time flow. No JavaScript, no delay. C#'s the future, here to stay.
Started out with jQuery, stuck in the past. Callbacks forgetting that it couldn't last. Then I found a framework that's sleek and tight. Blazor came and now my future's bright. No JavaScript, no need to stress. C# runs it all, no second guess. I write it once, reuse the code. Blazor's got that dev life mode. Coding like a pro, building nice and fast. Blazor on the front, .NET in the back. Full stack power, no more hacks. Type safe magic, got no cracks. I just hit deploy, watch it flow. Server or client, you already know. No NPM, no more woe. Just pure C#, let's go. Minimal APIs, backend's clean. Data flows like a dream machine. Signal R's got real-time moves. Sync it up and watch it groove. No JavaScript, no need to stress. C# runs it all, no second guess. I write it once, reuse the code. Blazor's got that dev life mode. Coding like a pro, building nice and fast. Blazor on the front, .NET in the back. Full stack power, no more hacks. Type safe magic, got no cracks. I just hit deploy, watch it flow. Server or client, you already know. No NPM, no more woe. Just pure C#, let's go.
I am back. Hi. What did I miss? You're talking in the chat. This is nice. Oh, there's a lot going on. Don't get stuck in tutorial hell. Composite keys work out of the box. Has key, yeah, true. Okay, talking about data annotations versus Fluent API still, right? Where can you get that song? When you're watching my live streams. It's just how you use, yeah. Clean architecture has nothing to do with data annotations or Fluent API. It's all entity framework stuff. Doesn't forbid you to configure context. Yep. can do it wherever you want. Do it like in the song. What is it called? Actually, I don't know. It has a name though. It has a name. I will look this up. Hi Patrick. Hi Julio. Yeah, I I will end the stream in a sec. I just want to finish one explanation or one thought was regarding vertical slice architecture. I just wanted to, I think Scott, you asked the question. Just wanted to tell you regarding the structure now. You see, first, maybe compared to clean architecture, you only have one project in this particular case here. So we have the data folder, we have the entities folder, and then already comes the features folder, right? This is just a .NET Web API, so there is no Blazor stuff. I will do that on the channel or in the next live stream then, and continue with this quest log application maybe. Tutu saying CQRS here should really just be CQS command query segregation. Yeah, probably. All right, anyways. And then you have the feature folder. And then, now this is debatable. Now in this .NET Web API, we got the, or I added this folder, the game characters folder, because it's about the game characters entity. And then we have the use cases like create character, get character by ID, level up character, right? So in that case, then you have, as you can see, you have the static class and then the record or a class, which is then in this case a command. Or you could also just call it request, right? CQRS is different topic here, but then you have the handler in here as well, and you can also add your controller or endpoint in general in this static class. Now, if you would add Blazor with the user interface though, with the front end in the end, then what I would do, that's what I talked about earlier with the article, right? The sidebar and the actual content of the article. Then in this case, what you would do probably is you have the game characters folder, but then you go one step further and create a folder for create character, for instance. Still have this thing here, but then also the UI part. Now in Blazor Server, what we could do with the quest log application, we wouldn't have an endpoint even, right? So you would only have the UI, the handler and the commands, or the query and the query handler, and then the UI in here in this folder then as well. And that's it. That's pretty much it for every use case. All right. So I think this is a good time to end the stream. And how long did we stream? Yeah, 140. All right. I hoped you liked it. I hoped you still learned something in this stream, although we really didn't come far. As you can see, we just have the entities actually. But maybe please tell me in the comments or still in the chat if you want me to continue with this thing. I think it's interesting to also see how we would now use vertical slice architecture, maybe together with GPT, to also build the UI there with Blazor Server, stuff like that. Maybe we can even add WebAssembly then and the auto render mode just for fun and see how this would then work out. Yeah, I would like to continue with this thing. Maybe you would like to do that too. So again, please tell me that in the comments. And apart from that, I can only say have a great evening. At least in my case, it's almost 10 p.m., 9:30. And yeah, happy coding. See you next time. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care.
Thanks for hanging out, you made